I'm Chuck Rowe, and to my left is Jim Brashears. We're both members of the Paradise Citizens Alliance, and we'll be conducting this round of interviews. Welcome to our Paradise Citizens Alliance interviews of candidates running for local, nonpartisan, elective offices serving our greater Paradise community. These interviews are meant for you, the voters, to learn more about the candidates, their positions on the issues, and to encourage you to vote on November the 8th. By voting, you're exercising one of your greatest rights and privileges as citizens in our democracy. All these interviews will be posted on our website at paradiseca.org for you, the voter, to access online and view from October the 8th right up to the election on November the 8th. With that, I'd like to introduce Cliff Jacobson, who's running for PID Board of Directors. Cliff, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm going to lead off with just having you tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I'm a Paradise citizen. I've been on the Ridge for quite a few years now, probably close to 30. I've lived in this community pretty much all of my life, and I've started and successfully run a water treatment and food sanitation chemical company for almost 40 years now. So I have quite a bit of background in both water treatment, potable water, industrial treatment of boilers, cooling towers, and wastewater as well.
Well, tell us, why did you decide to run for the District 5 PID board seat?
Well, my wife's actually responsible for that. A short while back, the people were complaining about transparency and about having things snuck up on them. They weren't real happy with that, and there were a few meetings, and I, of course, told her how I felt about it, and she said I should quit complaining and do something about it. So an opportunity came up for me to throw my hat in the ring, and I did. I was accepted, and I think in the last 6 months I've hopefully earned my keep, and I'm hoping that I will be elected so that I can continue to help.
Cliff, what do you see as the greatest challenges facing the PID both now and in the future?
We actually have quite a few challenges. Of course, we always want to keep rates down, but we have to look at bringing in enough income to cover the regulatory issues that are coming up that change all the time on us. We have to make sure that the water that we are providing continues to be good quality water, and that the system that we distribute it through is in good shape so that we don't lose a lot of water to leaks. And I think that's a big issue. We have some issues for regulatory compliance coming up, where some of the materials that we're using have slowly gotten on a hit list, and they will eventually necessitate building a $20 to $25 million water treatment recycle facility to recover that water and not discharge it anymore. And so that's an issue that I'm looking at, some alternatives that may negate having to spend that much money. That's a big issue that's important. We also have the Magalia Dam, which is an earthen dam, and because of that, the Army Corps of Engineers has made PID lower their level in that water body, and that makes it difficult. It's more expensive to pump the water up into the treatment plant, so we use it less, which allows it to become cycled up in solids. That causes a problem, and so we've got to figure out where to get the money to improve the road and the dam so that we can raise that water level up and increase our storage. I think a smaller issue, but one that's important to me, is that I want to make sure that we buy locally and that we support our local businesses. And sometimes in the haste of ordering things, that doesn't happen. And so I've been pushing for that, as well as making sure that when we do buy something that we're getting our value and not paying too much for it. And that's another area that there's going to require constant vigilance, but I think I'm on top of that.
Good. What changes or improvements, if any, would you like to see implemented in the Paradise Irrigation District?
Well, actually I've already implemented a couple of them. I was successful in getting the board to pass the purchasing locally. Actually in our Policies and Procedures Manual, Chapter 12 in purchasing, I got them to lower the amount that in the past was just a verbal bid from $3,000 down to $1,000, where they actually have to document even a verbal bid, and at a board meeting, if we see something that we want more detail on, we can say, show me the bid sheet. I want to make sure that you did your due diligence in purchasing it correctly. I also got them to put in the purchasing agreement that we need to make every effort to source locally first before we go down off the ridge for services and materials that we buy for our service.
Cliff, how would you assess the PID's water supply and conservation efforts to date?
I think that we've done a tremendous job on the ridge. In fact, we almost shot ourselves in the foot because we were so good at conserving water that people thought maybe we could do more with less. We were above the levels of most of the other counties and cities in the state, and we continue to use our water wisely. I think that we have adequate reserves right now. Paradise Lake has a good flow into it, and we do have Magalia as a backup. There are a couple other options that we have, but so far we don't suffer the same water shortage that the rest of the state does. The problem that creates is that we've got the water and they don't. So what's really important is how do we make sure that we keep it?
The PID board recently decided not to make any changes to division lines for now because, in part, because of a survey of district customers that was pretty much evenly divided. So what do you think about it? What's your position on this issue?
Well, I think that would have been good, because too many times I've seen talented individuals that would like to be on the board and would like to serve their community, but because they simply don't live in the correct district, they're not able to. That's what happened to me, and it was only through the unfortunate death of one of the directors that I was able to throw my hat in the ring and be on the board. So I think that in the past it made sense. Now, because we don't have much agriculture, it really doesn't, in my opinion, make sense that we keep these boundaries. It just stifles the ability for somebody, like I say, who is knowledgeable and educated and wants to serve their community from being able to do that just simply because they don't live in the right spot.
Cliff, what's your opinion of the special vote by mail recall election of the PID directors, Larry Duncan and Sepp Carolla, scheduled for January the 24th?
Well, I like to say I don't have a dog in this fight. Being new on the board, don't know enough about the past policies and the procedures that led to this recall. I understand that individuals were upset with the lack of transparency and what they thought were quick dealings to profit PID with raising their rates for no reasonable reason. And they also thought that money was not properly spent in the past, necessitating these increases. And I understand some of that. I think the biggest thing that they would be guilty of, in my opinion, at this point, is not educating the people about what they were doing and why they were doing it. Not saying, look, this is your water district. It belongs to all of us. And the expenses that we have are the expenses that we have. And if we want good quality water, we've got to pay for that. And if they had have taken the time to tell people why they needed these rate increases and not just to assume that because they needed them, they could just thrust them upon them without letting them know why. People got mad and they reacted. And I think that for the most part, we need to go and fix those problems, get people communicating, get them talking to each other, and be very transparent. If we need something, we need to tell the people that we need this, and we need to explain to them that we've done our due diligence. And if we do that, I don't think they're going to be upset with us. But I can't really say one way or the other. I'm on the fence on that one, and I can't really give you a one-sided view of it.
now is your opportunity to directly address the voters and tell them why they should support you on November 8th.
Well, quite a few reasons, I think. Number one, as I said earlier, I did change the Policies and Procedures Manual in Chapter 12 of purchasing, and I think that was a very good change, one that's going to make people look locally. There are a lot of businesses in town that I think could benefit from our purchasing from them instead of mindlessly going down the hill and taking our tax dollars somewhere else. So that's one improvement that I made. I also was instrumental in lowering the cost of a product that we buy, zinc orthophosphate. That's an annual purchase of $40,000 for treating our pipes in our distribution system. Because of my knowledge and my 40 years of experience in chemicals, I immediately saw that that was not a fair value. And so based on my efforts and making them go back and take a look and get some competitive bidding, I believe I've saved PID about $25,000 a year in zinc orthophosphate. In addition to that, we have an issue where we went to electronic meters, and these electronic meters enabled us with less personnel to read the usage on all of the meters in town, and we have approximately 30,000 of them out there. Those meters were beginning to fail. The company that manufactured those meters went out of business. The alternative to that is that we've been having to spend over $100 per unit to replace those, and I believe we've had about 2,700 of those failed already, and the rate that they are failing at is greater. When that was brought up 2 board meetings ago, I questioned why couldn't we change the batteries in these units if that's the reason they're going bad, and I was told that it's not possible, they're sealed. Well, I don't take no for an answer, because in the chemical industry we build a lot of chemical feed systems. So I went to the maintenance yard, borrowed a defective unit, took it back to my office, and figured out that for less than $25 and about 5 minutes worth of work, I can replace the batteries in those units. I have 6 batteries coming to me now that we're going to rebuild 3 units and put them out in the field. I'm sure they're going to work just fine. And potentially, if those 30,000 units all fail, now it's going to be about $500,000 worth of expense instead of $2.5 million. So I think that's a big savings. Until I looked at it, everybody was resigned to the fact that that's what they were going to have to do. So I think I've saved them a considerable amount there. The other big project, that, as I mentioned earlier, is the recycle facility that's going to have to go in because we're using aluminum sulfate. Now, because I know the chemical industry, I know that there are alternatives. Things like ferric sulfate or ferric chloride can do the same job as aluminum sulfate. That's not on the hit list and can stave off us having to put in a recycle plant for maybe 10 to 20 years. If that's the case, we've just saved another $20 to $25 million. These are the kinds of things that I deal with every day in my business. These are the kind of things that I'm knowledgeable about, and these are the kinds of things that I want to help the community with, because I have that knowledge. And up to this point, I don't think they've had anybody on the board with my experience. It's been lacking. And I'm glad that I'm there. I hope that the people are glad that I'm there. And I think that once they see the things that I'm able to do, they're going to want me to continue to be on the board.
Thank you, Cliff, very much for coming to this interview and being part of this interview process. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to come.